I'm Aileen. Welcome back to my channel. This is Homeschool with the Clarks. Today, I want to give all of my honest opinions about my father's world. This is Exploration to 1850. We've been using this year. It's been many months. We also use their pre-K curriculum. I'm not going to really dig into that one in this video. I'm going to focus most of my attention on this bad boy right here. I shared about this curriculum around this time last year. I was very excited. I had heard of My Father's World. I ordered a US map, sticker map from them a few years ago, but I hadn't really used them, hadn't really even considered them. And then last year we were finishing up Story of the World, the Middle Ages, and going into early modern times. I wanted to continue using Story of the World, but I was concerned that there wasn't enough focus on US history. And I also wanted to do US history a little more in depth while also keeping that like world history lens. I was thinking about piecing it together myself. I asked ChatGPT to help me. That was a huge mistake. And then good old YouTube showed me some reviews for this bad boy, Exploration to 1850. I felt like it had all of the things I needed. It uses Story of the World as one of its spines, but then it also incorporates many other books, other spines that you read little bits and pieces from every day or every week that are focused on US history. And then it had a bunch of novels that you were assigned to read that tied into the time period as well. And so I was really excited and thinking that this was going to be a great fit for our family, and then ended up going down the rabbit hole and also purchasing the pre-K for my TK kiddo who turned 5 in November. We have since stopped using that one. We did not last very long in that one. She just was bored to tears with it. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that one in this video. I'm just going to talk about Exploration to 1850, and I have a lot to say. To give you a little bit more context, my kids this year are in grades 8th, 6th, 3rd, and then my tag-along TKer who is there but not really expected to do anything other than just hang out and listen and color or whatever. One thing about My Father's World is they are a family style curriculum, which I absolutely love the idea of. I love the idea of that. I'm all about family style learning. We do separate language arts and separate math, but we always have at least one read aloud going, usually a read aloud and an audiobook. Oftentimes we'll have a read aloud going, a historical fiction novel going, and an audiobook going all at the same time together as a family. Plus my kids have assigned novels. And then we always do history and science and geography together, and any other extras like music and things like that. So the idea behind My Father's World really appealed to me. However, I went into it knowing that Exploration to 1850 was not just a history curriculum. It covers history, Bible, science, art, and music. And I went into it knowing I was going to use something else for Bible. I was using something else for science. I was using something else for music. And we probably weren't going to do the art because we were already doing too much. So I just wanted it for the history. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to my thoughts, because some of my complaints maybe wouldn't matter as much to you if you're going to use it for everything. But I love to piece things together. That is just... it works for us. I can really tailor things to what my kids want to learn about. And yeah, do I make it harder for myself? 100%. If I would have just taken this whole kit and used it all, my life probably would have been less complicated, but that's not who I am. If that's who you are, I love that for you. And My Father's World might be for you, but it didn't work out. We're not using it anymore. Very recently, I finally gave up on it. And I'm just gonna lay it all out and give you all of my thoughts, at least all of the thoughts that I could remember to jot down right now. I'm sure there's more, and just be really real and honest with my thoughts and experience with My Father's World Exploration to 1850. So first up, this curriculum is very expensive. The workbook, the teacher manual, just the teacher manual, not including all of the other books that you need, on their website is $144 for the teacher manual. In addition, you need student sheets for every student. They do not have a PDF option. There's no digital options of anything. And they have it in their terms that you are not to make copies of their student sheets. So I have 4 students and I was expected to purchase 4 $42 student packs, or maybe three, because my TKR, right? But that's a lot. And you can purchase this curriculum secondhand. If you buy the entire set with the student sheets and all of the books that you need included, I believe it's $440 on their website. And you can get it secondhand for the $200 range, but it's not, most likely will not have student sheets included. And so then you need to go on their website and purchase the student sheets. That's on the pricey side for me. That was, I bought it used. I was not going to buy it new. I bought the student sheets on their website because I couldn't find them used, but I did buy the curriculum used. I was okay with, but now that I've dug into it, I feel like for us, it wouldn't be worth it to buy the next years, like the 1850 to modern, because it just really did not work out. They're just for history. Again, we did not do science. We did not do art. We did not do music. We did not do Bible. Just for history, there were way too many books. Like we were reading from like 6 books every day, and they were very boring and dry. Like so boring. My kids already don't love Story of the World, but it's like quick. The books were just really, really boring. The only books that my kids enjoyed, ironically, was the 2nd to 3rd grade supplement books. They loved those books. They loved those stories. And it's not because they were younger. We read lots of like classic literature and more advanced stories and stuff. It's just the books that they were having us read were really, really boring and dry. And so it was hard to keep up with it all because it was a lot of reading on top of all the other things that we're trying to do as a family. And it just got to the point where I couldn't keep up with all of it. Now, to give you a little bit of context into our personal family setup, my 3rd grader made the competitive gymnastics team this last year. And so we did have to adjust to her leaving the house mid-morning 2 mornings a week to practice, like to go to the gym. And so on those days, I was more rushed to get our quote unquote morning time done, which is when we would do our history. And so the books were already boring. And then like I had limited time. And if I was going to read all of these, maybe I wouldn't get to our read aloud, and the read alouds are what we really enjoy. So that was challenging for me. That was one of the reasons why we ended up just like, I very slowly throughout the year have been dropping some of the books. And then just in this last month, I've been like, okay, we're done. We're just going to do Story of the World. On the note of books. Now, I cannot speak for every read aloud that they assigned because we did not read all of them. We started a book. We read about a third of it. And I felt that it was incredibly problematic. And I'm not normally one to think that classic literature is problematic. I can explain things to my kids and, you know, explain how we're looking at it through a different lens. It was from a different time. Like, this is how people spoke and behaved in these times, right? I can do that with my kids. We do that. I love Little House on the Prairie. Tons of people think that's problematic. This book, I'm saying problematic, but in my mind, I really felt like it was racist. Okay, I'm just going to say it. Like, it was about a man who was a slave, and it really painted the picture of like his masters were so kind to him, and he was like, it was almost like he was blessed to be a slave. And I could not finish reading the book to my kids. Like, I finally just had to stop and go, you know what? This does not feel right. We need to have a discussion about this, and we need to not read this book, because I don't want to be teaching to my kids that that's okay. And just full disclosure, the book was A Misfortune, Free Man. It was written in the 1950s. At that time, from the research that I've done, I haven't lived in the 1950s. It was much more common to look at it through that lens and paint that picture for children. We don't look at it through that lens now, and we don't paint that picture. And I'm 100% not okay with teaching my kids that it was ever okay in any way, shape, or form to have slaves and that it was okay for them to be a slave. Like, he was stolen from his family in Africa and made a slave and like brought to a whole new country. That's not okay. It's not okay. Not okay. That's where it kind of started to go downhill for me. So again, I cannot speak to all of their other books. Their Pioneers and Patriot book that we read, and it had like different chapters with different stories about the time, like tying in with the time period, which was one of the 2nd to 3rd grade supplements. My kids all loved those stories. Even my 8th grader would be like, "Oh, we can't read the rest today." Like, they were just very engaging, fun stories, kind of gave you like the viewpoint from the kid that lived in those times. It was great. We also read one of the Sisters of Faith books. I think it was Mary Chilton. It was about a little girl that traveled on the Mayflower. That book was fabulous. We loved that book. It was great. It was the second to 3rd grade supplement. Amos Fortune was not where it was at, and it really gave me a bad taste in my mouth. Just gonna go back and talk a little bit more about the worksheets now. I did kind of talk about that. They're expensive. You're not supposed to photocopy them. There's no digital option. I understand that they're a business and they have to make money, but that's a very common thing, is for homeschool families to buy one copy or buy a digital copy for families with multiple kids and be able to print it out. Story of the World, The Well-Trained Mind. I buy the digital copy and I print out as many copies as I want. They're already charging $144 for their teacher manual, or $440 for the entire kit. I just, okay. It just was too much money. And then the worksheets were super generic, and like a lot of them, it was like a picture of Christopher Columbus's ships and some lines to write. And it would be like Christopher Columbus, the Mayflower, George Washington, and some lines. Like, there wasn't like fill in the blanks. There's no quizzes. Like, there was just not enough. It was not worth the money. And I like the fact that you can't make copies. Like, come on, people, come on. So I don't know. The worksheets were just like, I could have gone without spending all that money on the worksheets. We could have just not used the worksheets. In fact, I kind of stopped using the worksheets because I have the Story of the World activity book, which is not part of, they don't have you buy that for My Father's Worlds, but I knew I liked it. Like, I really like their map work, and they consistently have map work for every single chapter, and they consistently have projects and worksheets, coloring pages for every single chapter. And My Father's World worksheets, you would have maybe 2 or 3 worksheets one week and then have no worksheets for 2 weeks. It was so inconsistent. And then when they did have worksheets, it was meh. I could have gotten off paid teachers. I could have made it myself. It was not worth the money. And on that same note, now I don't know why they do this, but like I mentioned, I purchased my curriculum secondhand. And by doing that, it was like a few versions behind. It seems like they revise their curriculum, like little bits and pieces of it, not anything like really big, seemingly like twice a year, once a year, very, very often. And because of that, because my teacher manual was a couple versions back, the worksheets didn't even match up, which is not like, yeah, I could have bought it brand new, but it almost felt like they were intentionally revising it so that people can't buy it used and then buy the worksheets, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the case. I'm sure they have other reasons for revising, but again, it just kind of goes back to like being kind of greedy and trying to like just get over on the homeschool families and just take all their money. And it just gave me the ick. But we didn't really need the worksheets anyway because they were not great. And obviously we weren't using the ones for science, but there was barely ever a science worksheet. So the last thing I want to say is the last 6 weeks of the curriculum, they're just doing a state report and nature journaling. So for science, they're just nature journaling for the last 6 weeks of school. That's it. That's your science for 6 whole weeks. And then they're creating a state report for a whole 6 weeks. And you have to purchase, the state report isn't included with the worksheets. It's a separate workbook that you have to purchase for every kid. And when I first bought it, I was like, you know what, that's going to be perfect because I'll be glad to be done with history before the end of the school year. And maybe that's why they did it that way. But it also was like, well, why didn't you just make the curriculum 30 weeks then? Because it seemed kind of weird to have to do 6 weeks on a state report and nature journaling and not have any other content that they're learning. Like they're not really learning anything. So that seemed, I don't know. It's just, I would have just made it a 30-week curriculum, which I would totally be on board with because we stop for Christmas school, we get sick, we go on vacation, whatever. 36-week curriculum, we usually don't get all of the weeks done. So I'm happy when something is 30 weeks, when it's like a history or science. So here are my like overall final thoughts. I was overthinking it last year. I felt like I needed something extra to teach US history thoroughly to my kids. But really, I could have just been using the Story of the World activity book and getting more books from the library on those weeks where we're learning things about US history, doing extra projects, things like that. I really did not need to go to the trouble of purchasing a whole nother curriculum and learning how to use a whole nother curriculum. I could have just used Story of the World. And I tend to do that this time of year, springtime. I'm thinking about the next school year. I'm watching all the YouTube videos. I'm looking at new curriculums. I love looking at new curriculum and buying new curriculum. And, maybe I just need to stick with things for a while and not change it, even though something new and shiny looks really fun. So for us, My Father's World was 2 giant thumbs down. If you do want to try it, I'll be selling my kit. I'll see you next time. Bye.